My presentation, as you are told, that it's titled Agenda for Change for Higher Education in the 21st Century for the Islamic countries. Structure of the presentation will consist of four topics. First, I will try to identify what I describe as waves and processes of change which influenced higher education institutions during the maybe more than or the last 100 years. I borrowed the term waves from Toffler, who identified also three waves of change in the world. The second topic I will touch is the socioeconomic context of and higher education status in Islamic countries, and then I will try to shed light on the challenges and lessons and prospects for higher education in Islamic countries. And the last, I will talk about UNESCO role and actions in higher education. I will start my presentation by stating three remarks that we are witnessing at this time that higher education and research is important and playing a very crucial role for the future development, not only of our nations, but for our humanity. Another second remark I would like to make is that it's no longer that the state, the national state, is an important actor in the field of higher education and research. Now there is a shift towards not only the global level, but also the local level. And for sure, within the global level, local level, regional level, sub-regional level, there are a number of actors who influence development and actions in higher education. The third remark I'd like to make is that in such a situation, it's not possible for one country, one region to act alone. We need cooperation, we need networking in order to be able to take positive actions in development of higher education. I believe that the general context, or what I describe the larger context of higher education, is determined by what I describe as the three waves of change. These waves, each wave, when it starts, it gains momentum, and towards its end, it creates another wave, and then it goes like this. So we have to expect that things are changing. These waves, they gain momentum by the factors which create the wave. If the factors or the power which create the wave is stronger, then we expect a very drastic, very rapid development or change. I believe that we have passed through three stages of development, or we have three waves. I believe the first one is what I call the, which started at the end of the 19th century, and it reached its end in the early 1940s. And then the second wave started after the Second World War. And then by the early 1980s, it reached its end. And then now we are witnessing, since the mid of 1980s, the beginning and actually the working of the third wave, which are now under its influence. The first wave, I think, is being created by the industrialization, which took place mostly in Europe and North America. And this industrialization was accompanied or actually created economical and political competition and processes. Maybe it reached its maximum in the process of colonization which took place in most of what we call now the developing countries. Also, there is a normative aspect to the first wave, that there was a very strong belief in the power of science and development. And there is notions which has been expressed by many influential people during the period, that there is no limit for human progress, there is no limit for the power of science. This wave made impacts on higher education. We have more involvement of government in the affairs of higher education, more funding being made, because universities is where science is being made, it's where it's disseminated. So for the first time maybe in the world, we witness the emergence of what we call national higher education systems. And then as the impact of the first wave, that we find the university move from the traditional disciplines, the usual medicine and theology, and I mean the disciplines which has been shaped by Aristotle notions, and now changing higher education institution, engineering sciences, other sciences of practical nature start to enter higher education institutions. And then at this time also we start to witness the emergence of non-university institutions, mostly devoted to science and technology. But the most important impact of the first wave is what I described as the transplantation, cultural borrowing of higher education system, where the belief of science and the strong belief in the limitless development and belief in extending the control have led European nations to establish systems of higher education in most of the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And this is the start of our modern system of higher education in most of the Islamic countries. Second wave, as I said, started after the Second World War, and it has been characterized by three types of explosion, what we call explosion of knowledge, explosion of expectations, and explosion of population. Increase of the production and the spheres of knowledge was very witnessed after the Second World War. Another thing is the expectation of the expansion of expectations. And we have two types of expectation. In European countries, North America, the expectation were linked with the desire of working classes to have more access to education, for social services, so on. So I can give an example. For example, in Britain, the emergence of the left-wing groups within the Labour Party, as well as in most of the European countries, have pushed for a reformation for systems of higher education, where they would like to move from the elitist system to a more open system. In developing countries, the expectations were raised about gaining independence, political independence, and so we witnessed the emergence of an independent state in that part, the parts of the world which has been under colonization. The explosion of population was possible by the increases and the improvement in health services, and we have what we call the post-Second World War baby boom, and we started to have the influence on higher education as a result of this explosion of So the second wave had a number of impacts. Maybe among one of them is that there's start to emerge a search for new definition, new functions for higher education and new philosophies. Higher education is no longer an elitist concern, but it now become a mass concern. Development in the United States of America have shown us that is in Japan also there is a shift in these philosophies which direct the higher education working. There's a drastic increase in the demand and expansion of higher education system, and now we witness a real system of higher education being created all over the world. The binary system in Britain, and most of the European countries, you have what you call short cycle higher education, polytechnics, and university colleges in addition to the traditional university. There is also a very massive increase in the disciplines and the specializations which used to be taught in these institutions, and emergence of new types of higher education institutions. Maybe the seed for open learning were there, where in 1967 or 68, in 1968, yes, the British Open University started a new brand of university education. And then we have also later on development of private institution of higher learning at a very large scale. Also, one of the impacts of this period is the development of system for finance, planning, and accountability. Universities no longer left alone to determine their fate in spending or determine their actions in spending the money which has been given, but now they are start to be asked to account for the money they are being given. The third wave, which started, as I said, one could say from the mid of 1980s, it is a result of what's been talked about so much, the globalization. And this globalization affected the economy, the trade, the finance, services, communication, culture, even education. There is also the growing role of an advancement and dissemination of knowledge. This knowledge start to have an influence in the economy, and now we are describing this period as a period of knowledge economy. This shows that the differences between countries in accordance with the improved position in terms of knowledge indicates improved position in economy. Also, this diagram shows that is the difference between Ghana and Republic of Korea is related to the difference attributed to knowledge in both society. The more knowledge production, utilization, the more advanced and wealth comes with that. If we look at the results of science, we'll find the results usually in discoveries, patents, and this shows the number of, or an origin as well, of patents according to regions of the world. The developed countries are having a bigger share and so on. Also, one of the features of the third wave is the advance of ICT, and these advances being made in information communication technologies have been accompanied by advances in cognitive sciences as well as in learning spheres, which has implications for higher education. Another aspect of the third wave is a newly evolving relation between higher education, the state, the market, the economy. It's no longer the old relations, but there is a new type of relations. This shows maybe the relation now between higher education and the other aspects of our society, whether economical or private or even notions of development or so on. Another aspect of the third wave is the constant social and political change. I think from 1989, we have witnessed a lot of changes taking place all over the world. There is a very strong concern now about ethics and values, although many people might not believe so. At the international level, there is a move for subjecting all nations to what we call international norms and international values and norms. In science, we are now very much concerned about the ethics and norms and values we have to attach to the advances, especially in genetic engineering and so on. There is shifts in the demographic trends in the world, very clearly the movement between countries and the increase of the number of young people in developing countries. Another aspect is the increase in trade in education. Education now, according to the negotiation of the World Trade Organization, is becoming one of the services and will be subjected to agreement, just like agreement which cover other economic activities. These created problems, the wave created problems to the preservation of national system of higher education. It's no longer now the state in charge of that. And also one of the impact is the increased gap between nations in terms of knowledge, science, and technology. Drastic decline of role of state in higher education, emergence of new providers, maybe that what we call trans-border higher education institutions, the corporate universities, the online, the distance learning, all these are the impact of the third wave. And now we have search and setups being made for the creation of accreditation setups and mechanisms at international level, at regional level, national level, and sub-regional level. There is a very clear indications as several systems move to a new types of teaching and learning methodologies. This is also a result of the, there is a great expansion of private higher education, involvement in terms of establishment or in terms of finance. If we move to the context of the socio-economic context of Islamic countries, we'll find that there is a big diversity in terms of racial or language or culture or education or colonial experiences. So I'm not talking about an entity which is homogeneous. Maybe the only thread which link is the Islamic culture and traditions. But they are also in different levels and, of development with different also level of wealth or in terms of population, the Islamic world constitute a quite good portion of the world, and also this part of the world societies also characterized by a high rate of population growth. Life expectancy also differs. The GDP per capita is also, you have 28,000 in Qatar, and maybe going down to less than 400 in, or 166 in Sierra Leone. Adult literacy also, we find diversity in them. Islamic countries, most Islamic countries coming very low in terms of Human Development Index. These characteristics, don't want to go. I think I will just skip this part because last night we have the presentation which touched on these characteristics. My intention here is to shed light that is the diversity in the socioeconomic status as well as in the systems of higher education can be a positive or of a negative impact for these countries in terms of if they are to put hands together in order to develop their cooperation or their systems of higher education. This diversity in this system, this can be also utilized to the better of the countries. I will skip this part which gives the factual information about the characteristics of the present status of higher education, and to move to maybe to the possible challenges and lessons. In July 205, the Organization of Islamic Countries established what they call the Commission of Eminent Persons, and they produced a report covered a number of issues. I will be very much interested to just to shed light on their opinion and recommendation. They believe that there is a very low level of contribution towards science and technology, lack of quality education, and failure to generate innovative ideas. These are their opinion. They made a number of recommendations. First is to increase the funding, to increase the involvement of private sector, to establish a consortium for higher education. And this is, I think, your organization, the Islamic Academy of Science, have a role to play in that. We in UNESCO are very much interested also to help in that, and also to enhance the exchange of experiences and to strengthen the capabilities of the institution, and to create some sort of new understanding of higher higher education system in general. I think for the Islamic countries, the agenda consists of a number of things. One of them is that there is a need to maybe reach a new definition of what we want our higher education institution to do and what function, what role they are to do. There is a need for the reform and renewal of the higher education system, both macro and micro level. Finance, I think one of the strong issues. Accreditation, quality assurance is another issue. How to handle the trans-border and new types of higher education providers is a very crucial issue. We've seen in a number of regions within the Islamic countries that the trans-border higher education are gaining very strong influence. But the most important is that there is a need for cooperation and networking. UNESCO, as it is an agency of UN system, can help in capacity building, in formulation of policies, and serving as a platform for dialogue. We are not a UNESCO is not a funding agency, but in that role, according to its mandate, it's tried to do a number of things. In 1998, the World Conference on Higher Education was established, and it had a second calling, that is what they call 1998 plus 5, and now we are thinking in 2 years' time we will have another session. This conference is important in order to get some sort of a dialogue, to go and reach some sort of understanding. Also, UNESCO have entered into partnership, cooperation, and collaboration within sister institutions, as well as with regional organizations. We work very closely with ISESCO, with ALESCO, and with other regional organizations. UNESCO created what's called Higher Education Forum as a means to increase research by third-world researchers to define what they need from higher education. UNESCO established the Unit Twin and the UNESCO Chairs for a program which, as a means of knowledge transfer and experience transfer, UNESCO have done a lot on convention, declaration, cross-border higher education and accreditation and recognition of academic degrees. We are ready in UNESCO to help and to work hand in hand with agencies and institutions related to higher education and significant. Thank you very much.